Welcome to WAGONS West on Thursday, March 28th. Tonight, we're going to be talking about World War Woke, the woke culture war that is happening all over the English-speaking world. And today I have with me a special guest all the way from RattlesnakeTV on YouTube. We have Mr. Jake Julius. Jake, welcome tonight, sir.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you for rescheduling as well.
Oh, no, not a worry. So, Jake, I ran into you, I guess, on YouTube when the algorithm decided I'd like to see your content there, and it was right. And I went on a little rabbit trail down there, listening to your content and your reaction videos and stuff, and just getting a sense for you. Really love your stuff. And maybe for those who are watching tonight that don't know who you are, maybe you can give us a little background about what you do and how you got into what you do.
Yeah, so I've got a YouTube channel called RattlesnakeTV, and I started it about a year and a half ago, about a year and a half ago now. And the reason why I got into this more political side of things was because COVID actually red-pilled me about these things. Before that, I never really cared too much about politics, never really delved into it too much. And then when COVID happened, all of the restrictions around me, because I was in Australia, were a little bit too much, and we had to get around and start fighting against the mandates. So that's what happened there. That's how I got my into politics and when I really started to care. But yeah, you can find me at Jake RattlesNK on Instagram and Twitter, and then Rattlesnake TV on YouTube. And yeah, it's a brief story of how I got into it.
What did you do beforehand?
Oh man, I did heaps of things. I was working at the Salvation Army for a few years. I was a personal trainer for a while. I did a recruitment for a bit. I worked in a brewery for a few years in London. Yeah, I've done a lot of different stuff. Didn't really have a thing before this.
I hear
lots of podcasting though. I mean, I did lots of podcasting for about 5 years before it.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, I did like a mixed martial arts podcast, about 100 episodes of that. I did an Australian rules football podcast. I did one more where I was on the street going to protests and like debating with protesters. And I did one where I was more political activism against COVID as well. So that was like 4 of those. And I did that for about like maybe 5 years or so and never earned a cent off it or anything. So done my 10,000 hours plus, that's for sure.
You're doing that. You actually rebranded your Rattlesnake podcast to reality-based podcast now. Can you talk about that a little bit? Yeah.
Sure, man. So we started a podcast last year where I was basically just getting people on the channel, and I called it the Rattlesnake Podcast because obviously in alignment with the brand. But then I just didn't like it, and then over Christmas and New Year's, I was sort of thinking to myself that I wanted to do a bit of a rebrand and wanted to get more guests on the channel this year and invest in some equipment where I could do in-person interviews and where I could eventually set up a studio. And I thought that I would just rebrand it, give it a new name. I saw what some other people were doing, like Alex O'Connor from the Cosmic Skeptic channel. I saw that he made a new podcast called Within Reason. I really liked that. I liked how he had that as like sort of a separate entity in a sense. And yeah, so I eventually was brainstorming. I came up with the name Reality Based after a while and really liked it, and then got some logos going and just going hard with interviews at the moment. So yeah. Nice.
I caught in the video before when you were talking about your rebrand from Rattlesnake to Reality Based. You're saying how Rattlesnake was your boxing name. So do you compete?
Yeah, I did for a few years. But yeah, Rattlesnake was my boxing name for a number of years there. And so Jake Rattlesnake, that sort of thing. And yeah, I competed in boxing in 2 fights and won them both, which was great. And yeah, so I actually got the name from a homeless shelter when I used to work at the Salvation Army. One of the homeless guys there recommended it to me. I was trying to figure out what my name was going to be because I knew the promoter, and the promoter was like going to give me like a pixie or fairy or something like that. He says, if you don't make a name, I'm going to name it for you. And I was like, oh fuck, I can't have that. So I went out to the homeless shelter and I was like, hey guys, like what should I call myself, you know? And then one of the guys was like, oh bro, call yourself Rattlesnake, bro. And I was like, it's actually a pretty good idea. And we ran with it. So
yeah, you got to have your name and you got to have your walkout music for sure.
Yeah.
Very important matters of order.
Oh yeah, for sure, man.
I did my first. I had two fights as well, not boxing. It was amateur Muay Thai in Ontario, which actually, I don't know. You said you've been to Canada before. I don't know if you know this about Southwest Ontario, but it is the mecca for mixed martial arts in the world. And they have a really robust amateur Muay Thai and boxing circuit down there. And you said you won both. I got knocked out unconscious in my first round of my first one. Got a really bad concussion. So that was that was a learned lesson. I came back and won the second fight. But yeah.
Oh, at least you came back. You got to close that chapter.
Yeah. But the first fight, I guess I wasn't really listening to the rattle. I should have listened to the rattle.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, you actually just had on your YouTube channel quite a milestone. You passed 500,000 subscribers, so that's pretty awesome. And that must have taken a lot of effort, a lot of work. Can you kind of lead us on a little journey of how you built that?
Yeah. So, it's been quite the process, man. We've been going for, like I said, about a year and a half now. And about a year ago, I brought my younger brother on board, and he is a videographer, and he does all of the editing. And I was doing it all myself before then, which was a real strain. So just before we got to 100,000 subscribers, I brought him on board, and that really helped me to sort of expedite that process and get that all happening much more succinctly. And then from there, we ended up traveling the world the last year or so, and basically just eliminating most to all distractions and just working 6 to 7 days a week, at least 6 days a week, every week, 12, 15-hour days, that sort of thing, and just doing nothing but making content and building the channel. And the idea is to just keep on doing that until we move into a studio and we've got more equipment and means to be able to hire other people and take off a few of those hats. So yeah, man, it's just been a process of a lot of hard work and just refining our message and refining the kinds of videos we do, improving the quality, going on different podcasts, and then now to the point where we're, we've got a pretty good system going where we upload 3, 4, 5 times a week sometimes. We've got a good shorts system going, and we're growing by good, hopefully a few thousand followers a day, and that's what we're up to.
What's it been like for you differing in the content? Because I know shorts is a whole different beast than the long form content, especially if you're leaning into podcasts. So I guess what would be your preference, and how do you divvy up that?
Well, the shorts comes from the long form content, so it's a little bit easier. So I'll do lots of different videos, as you see, lots of different long form videos, and all of the videos that I do are all debate videos. So then we'll find the best moments from the debate, and then we'll just basically, the only thing that I've got to refilm is me just saying, check this out, check out this moment. So then that makes it a little bit easier. And then my brother's got his own system down where he knows how to edit the shorts, and he does his thing in that regard. So they're both very important, man. If you have a good short strategy, it took us about at least a year or so to get a short strategy, because before that I was posting a few shorts and everything, but none of them ever did well. But then when we figured out a way in which we could sort of put them in the algorithms, that it got a lot more beneficial for us. And yeah, we started going hard at that.
And not only on your podcast, I've seen you on a lot of shorts and some other popular podcasts, and recently you've been on Valuetainment. You've been on the you're gonna forgive me, I don't know the name of the podcast. This one, the Whatever podcast. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, with the chick that was barking like a dog. And how do you keep a straight face when you're doing that, by the way?
I mean, it's not easy, man. But I think when you're watching it, it's a little bit different to when you're actually there, because when you're actually there and you've kind of interacted with the person, and even though she was actually pretty horrible, she was one of the worst ones that I've actually had to encounter, because there was a real narcissism about her, and she actually ended up saying some really bad things about us after the podcast and stuff. So that she was a bad one. So I don't really feel that bad for her. But normally when you're there and you've got these young girls who are obviously so freaking confused and don't really know, if they're Arthur or Martha, if I'm honest, and then you've got to sort of talk to them. I don't necessarily want to just beat on them, because it's just too easy. It's such low-hanging fruit. So you kind of feel sorry for them a little bit. When you watch the shorts, I guess you might think, oh, this person's so stupid or whatever. And it is stupid what they're saying. But for the most part, when you're there, you have to be pretty brutal to actually go after them, or to laugh at them. So
yeah, no, I understand. Absolutely. It's yeah, you have a little bit of empathy. It's It's your Christian nature, you know.
Ah,
Take a little bit
yeah,
of have a
try
little bit of
to.
mercy.
Yeah, you try to. I mean, it is pretty stupid though. I mean, some of the stuff they say, but they're a product of their environment, man. They're a product of the culture that we live in. They're a product of this sort of like cultural
Hmm.
revolution that's happened over the past, like, 50, 60 years. And it's a slow burning thing that's eventually now culminated into these people who don't like, who think that they can identify as a dog because we've lost any semblance of order in our society. So,
Are you single?
no,
Okay. I was gonna
no, I'm not
say,
even.
well, oh, okay.
I am single.
Okay.
I was
I-
gonna say, I was gonna make a joke and say that I've got 10 girlfriends, but no, I don't. I've got no girlfriends.
uh, I'm married, and we were just thinking about this the other day. Been married for quite a while now. Time flies, but I couldn't imagine like when I I think about kind of how the woke world is now. And I think back to an ex-fiance. It was 2012 when I was dating her, and I was just like, "What the hell is wrong with this woman?" And I didn't realize until after, what was actually many, many years later that I realized that was kind of my first encounter with this ideology. But what's it like, kind of in the dating world out there? I don't know how old you are. I'm putting you in your mid to late 20s, right? Am I guessing? Am I guessing
28,
right there? Yeah. Okay.
28.
So yeah, what's it like out there, mixing around, or do you kind of have your pools that you draw from?
Well, I mean, I don't really date too much, man, because I'm so pretty much married to the game at the moment. So I'm in a process of building right now, and dating's difficult, man. It's like you have to go and meet them, and then you have to like talk to them, and then you have to go on dates with them, and then you have to see if you like them or not, and then you might waste all this time. So I'm kind of getting myself to the point where I'm stable in one place, where I've got a good backing behind me, where I'm financially doing very well, and where I feel as though I could sort of kind of take my pick in a way. So I guess that's just to be completely honest, where I could just say, "You come with me."
Nice, good man, good man.
Yeah, I don't want to be
Yeah,
out fighting. I'd like rather get myself to a point where like I'm the prize, and then you know.
yeah, absolutely. You were talking, we were talking a little bit earlier offline about how you're traveling kind of all through the states, and um, do you have a part of the U.S. that you've been through so far that is your favorite part?
Um, I do like Nashville a lot. I do like Nashville. I like Miami as well, but I just don't know if I could live there. Is the only problem.
Hmm.
I actually like. I'd probably say my favorite part, objectively, is probably Santa Barbara. But I couldn't live there because, like, I love driving from LA to Santa Barbara. That
Right.
drive is beautiful, man. You go along the coast there, and if it wasn't run by such a crap government and the taxes were so high and the homeless situation was so shocking, if it wasn't for all that, I'd live there. But and everything's so expensive, it's bullshit.
Yeah, I do know Canada is very beautiful and run by pools, and it's also very expensive here. I don't know what it's like down in Santa Barbara, but it's sad when you have a government ruin like this beautiful place.
Yeah, no, it is, man. It is, and like I look at California and I think of like what it could be, which is the most upsetting thing. It's there's so much good about it, and you can imagine what it was in like the 60s, 70s, and 80s, like the Lords of Dogtown type era.
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
look at it
yeah.
now, and it's like it's devastating.
It happens fast too. With now in Canada up here, we have our own problems to deal with, but obviously we're always watching what's happening in the U.S. and by extension around the world. But what's the feeling like right now in the U.S. with things are headed? You're in an election year. You have big things ahead of you, and the things go many many ways. What do you think's happening here?
Well, I believe that there's a big resurgence in love or in like anticipation for what Donald Trump's going to bring. I think that's going to be the big story of the year is Donald Trump running for president, obviously getting the nomination as he has, and then just going up against Biden. And it's like this sort of hero's journey where he's been attacked and prosecuted, and they've tried to like throw everything at him to make sure that he doesn't come back, but he just rises like a phoenix from the ashes, and he's coming back to get them. And I think that that's the real story, and it's a captivating story that's going to sweep America this year. And if he does get back into power, the question then becomes, what's he going to do? And what are his policies going to be? Is he going to drain the swamp? Is he going to build the wall? Is he going to seek vengeance upon his enemies and upon those who have crossed him? So that's the big narrative. And I can see him getting elected again, but it would not be 2024 without there being some sort of mega spanner in the works, without there being Joe Biden going missing on like a trip to go and get ice cream one day, and then Gavin Newsom or Michelle Obama has to step up to the mantle and take his place. And, and Kamala Harris says that she just can't do it anymore without her beloved Joe. Joe, we did it. She can't do it without him. So then Gavin and Michelle Obama come in just like, the dream team ready to take on Donald Trump. So I can see that happening at some point. I don't think that Biden will run still, even though the indicators all kind of point to him actually running again. But I don't see how they could. I don't see how they could rig the election good enough to convince people that he won again. So
yeah, they got to have some sort of contingency. I'd imagine, like they can't be that incompetent, right? Like they must have some plan in the works, I'd imagine.
Oh yeah, they're a joke of a partnership, and people know it.
Yeah, man, we have our federal election coming up in 2025, so next year, and we have kind of you have your Trump Biden, we have our Polyev Trudeau, as the case may be, and
yeah, I'm really rooting for Polyev. He seems like a competent and cool guy.
He's better. I certainly think he's better, but I don't know. We feel it was a big feeling that it's kind of a uniparty here, that it's like, they're just two puppets on the hand of the same master.
Oh, same as Australia.
Yeah. And actually, I was just talking with some friends from Ireland, and I discovered that they have the two opposition parties that actually joined and made a literal uniparty. So that they could now just essentially stay in power. So what's happening in Ireland is crazy. You talked about doing all your podcasts, and you're critical of certain politics or cultural things or ideologies. And in Canada here, we have something going through our House of Commons and Senate right now called Bill C-63, which is the Online Harms Act. Have you heard of this?
I've loosely heard of it, but I don't know too much about it, so I'd like to hear more.
Long story short, it's been painted as this protect kids from harms online, whether that be like bullying, whether that be access to pornography, things like this. So it's being painted as that, but they're kind of slipping in there the definition of hate speech, what hate speech is, what could be deemed as terrorism, and if you are under this legislation, and with this legislation, there's certain parts of the Criminal Code of Canada that are also amended. And the long and the short of it is, if I anonymously report you because I suspect that you may commit a hate crime. Now, what is a hate crime? What's hate speech? And so we have to take that into consideration. So exactly. So if I interpret that you might be committing a hate crime, and the police investigate you, because I report you and they determine that, it's likely that you may have been going to commit a hate crime, you can face up to life in prison and $20,000 fines, I think.
Life in prison?
Up to life in prison for hate speech, yes. Yeah. What is deemed as hate speech.
How would you possibly get a life sentence for hate speech? How would that work?
That's a very good question. Now in Canada, a life sentence right now actually means 25 years, but I got to find the article now. Here it is.
Maybe it seems like if it just compounded and you did so much hate speech that eventually, you did so much that you get the 25-year sentence. But surely it's not for something innocuous like a.
Well, we don't know. Like we talked about offline, the Freedom Convoy there, right? People's bank accounts were frozen for donating to that. There's people, 2 men in Alberta still in prison, or still in remand rather, awaiting trial. 3 others that are facing up to 10 years imprisonment for just being at the peaceful protest, for being critical of the government. So that's the criticism of this bill is that, yes, obviously, who doesn't want kids to be protected online? We all do. I think everybody does. And so that's why it's so hard to criticize the bill, because they'll slip all the other things under that. But it's very very slippery slope. I found the not the article. I found a screenshot of one of the sections of the bill here. Right here. Every person who advocates or promotes genocide is guilty. Okay, so this is also as a part of the same act. If they promote genocide, is guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for life. I wish I had the whole thing there.
Wow. But it's funny because I wonder if what they mean by genocide, though, because there might be some Palestinians who think that Israel's committing a genocide. So who gets to decide what genocide is?
Well, if you're in South Dakota, it's been decided for you. Have you heard about that?
No.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's the thing, like here in Canada, I just read today that we had just passed the 40 million mark in terms of population. And because of our immigration here, we've already just months after that have hit 41 million. So we're growing at a record pace. And so we don't have the resources to like invest in, we don't have the resources to invest outside of our borders really, but we're doing it anyways. And we're supporting these fights that don't really have anything to do with us. And I have sympathy for people, the civilians and the innocent on both sides that have nothing to do with it. But it's just crazy that we're all worked up over that when we got so many crazy things happening right here.
Yeah. Yep. You certainly do. So does America.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man.
On that topic, you've been commenting a lot on the kind of Daily Wire Candace Owens scenario. Can you kind of elaborate on what you think's happening there? And
yeah, sure.
Yeah, I guess we'll just leave it at that.
So I believe that obviously Ben Shapiro actually came out today and he was speaking to Dave Rubin about it and just sort of saying that they don't have any necessity, I guess, like it doesn't necessitate that they have to be able to, like, they have to be funding and subsidizing Candace Owens if they disagree with her. I think he's right about that. Ben Shapiro is ultimately right about that. He's a business. They have certain political views. And if they don't want to be subsidizing people who go against those political views, I mean, as Ben Shapiro obviously wouldn't want to be subsidizing somebody who goes against the Israel narrative because that's his, main thing is being pro-Israeli, then he doesn't have to. I think the problem, though, is that they don't just come out and say that. They try and act as though that's not a problem and they're free speech and, they never want to censor anyone. Well, they do, because if you cross a certain line about this matter, that's not necessarily a conservative American first matter, because that's what Daily Wire is sort of, that's how they sort of present themselves, is this like American conservative, fighting back against woke Inc. and making all of these movies against transgenderism and all these problems that are happening in America. Well, I mean, if your position is in fact one that is not America first, it's primarily worried about Israel, then that the optics of that are not good. So that's why they won't come out and really just say it. So that's an issue.
Who do you think in kind of conservative media is your go-to right now?
In conservative, as in who do I watch?
Yeah.
I'd say ideologically, I probably align most closely with Candace Owens. And like Paul Joseph Watson is a good YouTube channel that I watch a lot of his videos. He's great. Not really that many people. Like I listen to PBD sometimes. I like to listen to a lot of the debates that happen. But yeah, I take little bits and bobs from people here and there. But I'd say probably the one that I align the most closely would be Candace.
You mentioned PBD, and you were recently on Valleytainment Saucecast there. What was your experience on that podcast?
Yeah, it was awesome, dude. Their studio there is super cool. Like they've got an amazing setup. They've got like great staff there, and all the back rooms are very sort of like Hollywood-esque and really cool artwork everywhere. They've got the coolest like cigar lounge, man. Like you walk into the back office and then there's like another door and like it's this vault cellar type thing. And they've got couches and poker tables and artwork and like a bar and everything that's set up all in a poker in a cigar lounge, and they all just sort of sit there and smoke cigars. I think there's a show or two that happens in there. So they're really doing things over there, and it's sort of like the embodiment, the representation of what new media is going to look like in this day and age. So out with the old, Fox and CNN. I think these guys are really becoming a lot smaller until the point where they'll probably just be podcasts, and they won't be able to have the same sort of production value. I mean, I go on Fox. I was at Fox Studios last night, and it's probably not what it used to be, I'd say. And then you got guys like Valuetainment who are just coming up. They're like the new, fresh kids on the block who are doing it differently and going big and going bold and creating really good content. And it's cool to see. And it's like something that I want to be a part of and something that I'd like to contribute to myself.
You've seen the controversy with them bringing Chris Cuomo on, but PBD was defending it, saying that they want to host debate and they want people, I guess, from different ideologies come on to have that space to talk that out. What do you make of, I guess, his choice there, and how do you think what do you think it's gonna do to the show? Do you think it's gonna have any effect at all, or?
I like it, man. Like I'm okay with it, to be honest. I see in a way with the vision that PBD has there, and he'll probably be able to bring in a certain demographic. And I kind of see it, man. Like he's got himself and Vinny, who are more like the sort of staunch America First type conservatives, and then he's got Adam, who's like the sort of reformed liberal guy who is a little bit more in the Trump camp now and getting a little bit more based as the weeks go on. And then they want to have somebody who's kind of like on the left there and who can, like you said, sort of like hold that space. So I get it. I get what he's trying to do. And I don't really see why people are that angry about it. I mean, he was a big voice and he seems to have some decent takes since he's been back. And it's interesting to watch him going back and forth with a person like, Candace Owens the other week. And it's interesting to watch him going back and forth with Patrick Bet-David. Is he going to be on the Home Team podcast, on the main podcast?
Oh, I don't. If you're asking if I actually know that, no, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but if he is on that, that'd be a bit odd because you've got Tom and Adam, and one of them would probably have to get kicked off, unless you wanted to have 5 hosts. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, very, very interesting. Yeah, we're talking about who you watch on the right, but who do you think on the left is doing a doing a good job, or who would you? Are they doing a good job? I don't know if they're. I don't really know. There must be one out there. There must be a couple.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to watch Kyle Kolinski. He's one that I watch a fair bit. Don't always agree with his takes, but I think that he's one of the better ones, one of the better leftists. If you watch a Breaking Point, you got Saga and Crystal, and they make some good points. I even like Anna Kasparian's commentary on some things on the Young Turks. I see her as like genuine. She's still like a bleeding heart liberal, and she's got some bad takes. But like when I look at Cenk Uygur, I see him as like disingenuous. I see him as more of like a business guy who like is doing what's best for business. But when I see Anna Kasparian, I kind of see someone who's like kind of like a Bernie Sanders. Like you disagree with her, but you know that she's about it. So so yeah, those are 3 that I'd probably think are doing a pretty good job. And I mean, Cornel West is a guy who I listen to a fair bit. He's very much on the left side of politics, and he's very interesting. Even a guy like Jimmy Dore, Jimmy Dore was a part of the Young Turks for a while, and he's still got that sort of like classic liberal type leftist about him. I think that he's sort of adapted to the times, and he's very much kept his ethos of being anti-war, anti-military industrial complex, anti-monopoly, and now it's taking this more sort of like center-right libertarian type like mold, I guess.
And you said you've been focused on kind of building the empire right now, and I'm playing the game, not really dating, not just focusing on work. And you're spending kind of months in a place and then going to another place and just really hustling. So, do you have time to train? You said you used to box, yeah. So, what do you do for training to keep yourself sharp?
Oh, well, I don't really box so much anymore. When I was in Thailand last year, I was doing a fair bit, but more Muay Thai though. But yeah. I just lift weights, man, like probably 3 or 4 times a week. I'll just go to the gym. I try and go at least 4 times a week and train. I also play like soccer wherever I am. I'll play like 5-a-side, 7-a-side soccer. try to get out for a walk every day. But yeah, just trying to keep like a level of strength is what I'm trying to do. But it's pretty hard when you're moving around all the time, if I'm honest. Like if I was in one place and had access to a gym nearby and could like, go and get a PT to work with and everything, then I would probably do that. But I keep in decent shape, man. So it's not too bad. I'd like it's pretty much mostly about what you eat, to be honest. If you eat a high protein diet and you try and watch your macronutrients, because I've done a few boxing fights and done a few sort of like bodybuilding type things. So I understand macronutrients. And once you understand it and you've done a few of those sort of cycles where you'll be like cutting weight and bulking and like cutting weight for boxing fights, you get a decent understanding of your body. And like you can sort of just tell every day with what you're eating. You can get like a little sort of calculator in your head about what your protein, fats and carbs split is. So I kind of rely on that. But if I wanted to, and if I wanted to sort of like really go hard at it and spend a few months training really hard and bulking or just getting ripped, then I could. But it's just excuses.
I'd love for you to explain to the viewers what it's like, because you said again 2 fights and that. What's it like for you mentally, kind of being in that ring and having that fight?
Well, I loved it, man. Like I think I'm like a little bit of an outlier like that, because I mean, my brother said that when he did it, he was like really sort of like just frantic, my older brother. But when I did it, I remember my first fight, I was terrified in the back. I was like sweating bullets and I was hitting the pads beforehand, and my coaches were like, revving me up. And I just remember like literally, I know what they mean by sweating bullets, because there was just bullets pouring down off my head. And then I walked out, and then as I walked out, I started to feel like calm. There's this thing where Mike Tyson says, as you walk towards the ring, you feel like a god, like no one can touch you. I kind of felt like an ounce of that. And then when I got into the ring, I just felt really, really sharp and cool and calm, and like I had my spidey senses on. And that was pretty much me for the fight. I went into the corner after the first round and I was just like kicking back, like with my arms up like this and just chilling. And then went out in the second round and stopped it. So, I think I quite like that pressure. And I feel like a similar sort of pressure when I do podcasts these days, like when I'll go and do a live podcast with Valuetainment or whatever, or something like that. And it's a similar sort of rush. So I think I'm a bit of a junkie like that.
No, I totally get that.
I like the feeling of performing in those moments.
Yeah, that's the appeal of the documentary photography as well, is just catching something raw in that moment. I mean, there's the added, I could sit there and wait, but when you're in that ring or you're on that podcast with PBD or whatever the case is, you have to be sharp and you have to be able to move really quick, right? So there's that added pressure. It gets a little bit of gets the adrenaline going a little bit.
Oh yeah, 100%, man, 100%.
What was your experience training Muay Thai like? That's my shit. I love Muay Thai.
Yeah. You were mentioning before it. My older brother does Muay Thai. He's had like a few fights with that, but I don't mind it, but I've got to be really careful. I've had like 5 bad concussions in my life, so I've got to be really careful. Like I can't even spar anymore. Like I've got to give it up because I've had just too many head knocks, and I touch wood, haven't felt the effects of it yet, but let's hope that I've dodged the effects of that. But I was training there last year, and I was at a place called Lamai Muay Thai, which is a Muay Thai camp in Koh Samui in Thailand. And there's a guy called Jonathan Haggerty, who's like one of the best Muay Thai fighters in the world at the moment, if not the best. And he was training there with us, and there was a bunch of different world champions there. And I literally just didn't even know what I was walking into. And then and I was training with like the noobs, because when you do that. And then we did some sparring, and there was a guy from Germany who had just like flown in, and like they made him train with the noobs, even though I didn't know this, but he had like 50 fights. And then we started sparring, and we was like going pretty hard, and like, I was landing a few on him, and he was touching me up a little bit. And then the coaches were like to me, "Oh, come and train with the fighters." So I was like, "Yeah, cool, whatever." I don't know any Muay Thai fighters. I only follow UFC and boxing. Only to realize that there was like freaking world champions everywhere, and all of these guys were just total savages. And you ask anybody who's trained in Thailand with like the Middle Easterners, and they just want to kill you, man. Like you get in there and you'll start sparring, and there was this like little Turkish dude who was like this tall on me, and just freaking throwing head kicks. And like, I've got a boxing background, so I don't really know how to defend kicks that well. So he's throwing all these kicks and I'm trying to defend and everything. I must have dropped a hand and I just caught a shin right behind my head and he concussed me. I stayed standing, but I was like, oh, you know, when you know, you know. And
Yeah.
like I was real sick for the rest of the night. I wanted to vomit and I had a badass headache for like the next 2 days. And then that's when I was just like, I can't do this. And like, but the problem is that I'm too competitive. So if I go into a gym, like a Muay Thai or a boxing gym, and
you want to get in, you want to do it.
I want to show the kids that I've still got it, bro. Like I want to be like, I'm looking at them. I'm like, you know, the old bull just like waiting at the gates. And yeah, so I want to spar. And it's like when people who don't understand, I'll say like, look, imagine if you played like soccer and you went to training 3 times, 4 times a week, and then when game day comes, you can't play. Imagine how that would feel. You know, it sucks. So whenever I get in there, like I don't like just hitting the bags. And then there's always someone who notices that you've got a bit of skill. And then one of the coaches will come up and say, hey man, you want to come spar my boy? And I'm like, if you say no, you just feel like the biggest pussy in the world. And it's like, so I'm just going to stay out of the gyms from now on until I have a little bit, like maybe my testosterone drops and I have a little bit less sort of like ego, you know?
My first Muay Thai fight, I got knocked out first round and I was put on a medical suspension for 90 days so I can get a CAT scan, get cleared to go with my second fight. But in between that time when I was on my medical suspension, there were still fights going on. There were still guys from my gym fighting. And I had to stand there and corner them. And it was just absolute torture, like you said, like not, you know, because you had your bell rung, so now you can't. And it's just right there in front of you. It's just absolute torture.
Yeah. And it's terrifying and it's a long process and it's all of that. But the actual feeling of getting in the ring and fighting, it's like a rush and like a feeling that you just never get anywhere else. And like just putting it on the line, it's like this primitive sort of like animalistic feeling that you get where you just about to go to war with another man. And it's like, oh fuck, like it's not just in the modern world of comfort and ease and instant gratification. We just don't feel that. So it's like Fight Club, you know?
It's definitely like you're definitely 100% present. I don't know about you. Like I guess with experience, you'll get to hear what your corner is telling you. I couldn't hear a thing. Like it was just like, boom, everything else is gone, and it's just this guy and me, and just such a like you just said, absolute rush.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So it's an amazing feeling.
You said you did podcasts on Australian football, and although I admit I'm not much of a sports guy, some of the sports I do like are rugby and things like that, where it's kind of like, it's almost like martial arts in a way. It's kind of the art of moving through people. Can you explain kind of how Aussie football differs? Like something, and it's very different, and you throw backwards and it's like you play in a circle. Like what's going on with this Aussie football?
Oh gosh, I've tried to explain the rules to foreigners before, and it's a long process. But you've got 18 players on the field, 6 forwards, 6 midfielders, and 6 defenders. And basically the way it works is that
per team,
got like 18 each, and you've got like a rugby ball, but it's more of like an oval shape because the rugby ball has like kind of like a pointy end, but it doesn't have the pointy end. It's like an oval with like a rounded end. And what you can do is you can handball it, which looks like this. You get it like this, and you can like handball it like this. You can handball the ball to a teammate, or you can kick it, which means it's called a drop punt, where you like take it like this and then you drop it on your foot and you kick it. And then when you mark it, when you catch it, you can stop, take a few seconds, and then go to hit the next target. And if the ball hits the ground, it's loose in play and everyone goes for the ball. And the idea is to get it into your 50-meter arc and to score a goal, which is the big posts, which is 6 points. And if you score a point, which is the little post next to it, then it's 1 point. And you want to get a bigger score than those other guys. So what's
with tackling or stuff like that in Aussie football?
Yeah, so it's similar to rugby tackling, except you can't go below the knees, or like I don't even think you can actually go below the waist. You just sort of tackle their torso, and you don't want to tackle them above the neck because like it's a high tackle, and you can't push them in the back because that's also a free kick. But yeah, and if they get the ball and then they've got a chance to release it, and then they get caught with it, and then that's called holding the ball, and that's a free kick as well. But yeah, it's a contact sport, man. It's like lots of injuries, lots of heavy contact, and yeah, it's a brutal sport. Probably one of the more brutal sports in the world, like with rugby and American football and those ones. But it's got a particularly brutal thing about it because there's no padding.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the Irish sport of hurling?
Hurling. It sounds familiar.
All right, I'm gonna play a video here.
Yeah, go.
I don't think we're gonna have audio on it, but that's okay.
That's okay.
This is hurling, an Irish sport. So it's like, well, you'll see. It's no gear. I mean, you have your helmets there, and the helmets are kind of relatively recent. I remember being introduced to this sport in 2012, 2013, and there's still a lot of guys that didn't wear helmets there. And so it's basically like a softball or a baseball they're carrying around there, and then they're swinging at it with field hockey sticks, more or less, in the air. And yeah, it's pretty. They call it the fastest game on grass.
Yeah, there's also a sport called Gaelic football in Ireland.
Yeah,
that's very similar to AFL. That's very similar to Australian football.
Anyway, enough of that. Yeah, cool stuff, man.
Yeah, no, it's a good sport. Honestly, I think Australian football is one of the best sports in the world. I'm a big soccer fan. Like I'm a fanatic about Liverpool Football Club, and I'm massive on soccer. So that's my number one. But AFL would be close behind.
Did you play in leagues and stuff growing up?
Yeah, I played all of that. Yeah, not soccer, but I played Australian football growing up, and played rugby as well.
That explains maybe some of the concussions. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. We're all getting kneed in the face for rugby tackles, you know.
I got all like the shitty sports. When the earliest sport was 5-pin bowling, and then after 5-pin bowling, I did softball. I think I did t-ball too. Yeah, that's softball. Yeah, and then like taekwondo, and then on from there. But yeah, so none of the cool sports for sure.
Taekwondo is cool.
Yeah, we're up here in northern Alberta, and these small rural towns, like the town I'm in, is under 1,900 people that live here, and they have a professional hockey team, and hockey is like, it's insanity up here. They're very hockey is very important to them up here. I guess when there's nothing else to do, maybe your sports teams do become very important.
I just need to quickly plug my computer in. Give me 1 sec, man.
Oh yeah, go for it.
My laptop's just told me it's going to die. Notified me.
Don't let that happen.
Yeah. There we go. All good.
Nice. Awesome. Cheers. Hey, so I was just checking out some episodes of your podcast, and you recently had Dave Rubin on. How was that?
Yeah, it was cool, man. It was I was meant to interview him for 45 minutes, and if I had a little bit longer, I think I probably would have gone into a few more disagreements. But it ended up being that his team messaged me on the day saying, "Oh, remember, it's only like half an hour," and then they were a bit late to it, and it only ended up being like 25 minutes or something. So, with the questions I wanted to get through, it's kind of just like an introduction, man. I just wanted to like say hi and create that network. And I think a lot of people in the more conservative movement have a lot of problems with Dave Rubin, and people would have probably liked to see me like challenge him a little bit more. But to be honest, when someone makes their time for me and wants to come on my podcast and gives me that respect, and I'll show it back. And then if I want to like engage them about certain ideological things, then I'll probably send them an email before and say, listen, let's talk about this. I'm going to go through this and that with you. Or I'll just say, can I, like, are you happy to, for us to go through any topics? And if they say, yep, I'm an open book, then great. So I think Dave probably wouldn't have minded even if I did sort of ask him about those things. But yeah, I think next time we might do an in-person one for a little bit longer and get into some things like, like the idea of God and abortion, and, his having a child with his husband, and gay marriage, and what it means to be a conservative, and a bunch of different things. But if I'm a nice guy, so first time we'll sort of just get to know each other.
That's I think it's a respectful way to do it. Like, I know you could probably get flack for not for letting him get off without attacking him on certain things. But relationships are, a mentor used to tell me, relationships are like bank accounts, right? You have to make a deposit before you ever make a withdrawal. and you know, you want to build that relationship first.
Good
That
point.
is you are a Christian, I've heard you say, and on different podcasts, and that was one of the things I wanted to talk about actually, is your faith, but also as it pertains to, because this is something that I've been going on like a little mental journey with, which is not gay marriage, but adoption, having two parents and that are, whether it be two females or two males. And you know, thinking about what's it like in a single parent household. I grew up with both parents, not a single parent household, but we know like what you know, not having a dad in the home can mean for a child, and how that can set them back. And you know, and I wonder if also remove the mom from the equation, if it's just a single dad, what effect that has. And then how are we playing with things if we have a pairing that raising a child? Now, there's children that are in the foster system that don't have anyone that wants them, that, you know, that need a loving family, they need a home. And so I guess how much damage are we doing, and how much damage are we stopping by doing the things that we're doing? I'm just curious what your opinion on this is.
Well, it's definitely a lot worse to have single mother homes than father homes, because you know, men tend to be more disciplinarian. But I'm not really. The problem is with these gay sort of surrogate marriages is that you're renting a womb, and then the child isn't growing up with its mother, with its biological mother, and obviously children need their mother, and it's a very backwards way to do things. And the idea is the nuclear family, because the nuclear family is what is the bedrock of civilization. It's a mother and a father and children, and that's what we should be aiming towards. That is the highest ideal, is a loving nuclear family. However, we do have very massive problems with our birth rates, and we do live in a very liberal world where, you know, gay marriage is now accepted, and families, you know, like there are people who are openly raising their children without a sex, without a gender. They say they won't choose their child's. They'll allow their child to choose their own gender, and it's like, that's child abuse. You know, like it's your job as the parent to bring order to your child. It's not your job as a parent to take orders from your child. No, you tell them how it is. You tell little Timmy that he's a boy, and that this is like, you know, you facilitate them growing into a boy or a man. You know, you facilitate her growing into a woman, and it's just so mixed up and so backwards, and it's just the world we live in now, unfortunately, where the idea of family is being toyed with so much, and people think that they can do it any old way, and you really can't. And you know, I'm living proof of this in my own life, because I grew up with a mother and a father until I was 14. Then my dad got really sick, and like about a month after he got really sick and he was in a coma, I was kicked out of my first school, and I got kicked out of 4 different schools, and was off the rails after that happened. Because, you know, as much as my mum's tough, she wasn't tough enough to fill the void of my dad not being around anymore. And I felt that effect in my own life in a very profound way. And, you know, as a young man, you're desperately searching for authority, whether you believe it or not. You're desperately searching for somebody to tell you, hey, no, this is how it is. Or else, if you don't do that, you're just expanding endlessly, and you're just constantly looking for things to rebel against and just walls to thrash against. And if you don't have that masculine influence in your life, then you're screwed. And it takes a real special somebody, I think, to grow up without a dad, and to make it through to manhood in any sort of, like, you know, any sort of like as like a respectable man. Like, it's difficult, man.
I know, I agree with you there. You know, I've often said that, because you hear people, you know, when I say you hear people, I'm just talking about like the TikTok reels or whatever the case is going by, where people are promoting like, you know, I don't need a man, I'm doing it on my own. I always said that if you're intentionally, like, obviously things happen, people die, people change, people are people, and they do what they're going to do. But if you intend to raise a kid on your own without the help of another parent, if that's what you're doing on purpose, I said that's child abuse. And then I thought, then if, like you said, you're raising that child without its mother, without its biological mother, if you're doing that on purpose with surrogacy, I guess then that is the same. That is child abuse, I think. But
Yeah.
but now I'm like, okay, but if it's like some foster kid in some foster home, like, are they going to be abused by whoever? Like, if you can give that child a loving home, that's maybe a fix, right? Because you're giving somebody a loving home in a stable environment that needs one right now versus bringing someone else into an environment that's kind of fucked. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, as long as like I mean, it's just so difficult because I think like how much do you want to let it slide? Because the underlying principle is that man, woman, child, right? Man,
Mm.
woman, children. That's the ideal. And then how much do you want to let it slide? Because then if you say, oh, well, we can do it in in like a foster situation because, these kids don't have a home and these two guys, they want a child. So, I mean, it's better than nothing, right? You could say that, but then eventually sort of like the slippery slope is then, well, like, well, then why can't a man and a woman just two men just sort of use a surrogate because that otherwise that kid doesn't get the chance to live, and you go on and on and on until eventually it's like, well, why can't why can't this polycule raise this child? There's like this non-binary they them and this pixie self and this she they and this they all live in this polycule. Why can't they raise this kid? Like love is love, man. Like, so yeah, it's a never ending thing.
It's a big push right now. In Canada, here in Alberta, it's really the same everywhere. And like we were talking about before, kind of in the English speaking world, at least. Well, you know what? I can't. Maybe that's unfair. Maybe it's not so bad in parts of Europe and England and stuff like that. But certainly here in the U.S. and in Canada, there is the whole trans push and woke ideology push. And I've read about kids being taken away from their parents in the northern states, northwest or the Midwest states in the north, to go and get either surgery or puberty blockers or something across state lines. There's just this big news in the States of a teen being taken away from her adoptive parents, her or him, to go over across to the next state where it was legal for her to do the transition, whereas in their home state it wasn't legal. So crazy stuff happening up here in Canada as well.
I saw a story of a guy who, like a dad whose wife did that, or like the ex-wife and the mother of his kids, took the kids, and when he wasn't with them, and then they took them for a sex change or whatever down in another state, and he was just like, this is crazy, it's madness. And he wanted to friggin' what's it called, kidnap the kids and just say no, which I don't blame him for.
You got to do what you got to do to protect your kids. And I really, really feel for parents when the state is put against them. And this is why that Bill C-63 I talked about before is scary, because if it does pass under the guise of protecting kids from harm online, but now if you don't affirm your kid comes home, your kid's in this. So first of all, homeschooling, this is a defense against the stuff. But if you have your kid that comes home from school, says, I'm the opposite gender now, and I want you to refer to me as whatever, and you don't now, that kid in Canada, if you don't affirm that, could then lead down to life in prison. So it's scary times, man.
Yeah, imagine getting a life sentence for that. I just put my kids on a plane, bro, and just go see your grandparents in Italy or something,
Yeah, man. Yeah. Nice sweater.
Yeah. No, thanks, man. Got it from like a side street shop in Mexico. So
Those are the best kind.
Yeah, man. Nice and warm, but getting a bit cold in here. I look big now. I look like I've been hitting the gym, so it's perfect.
Yeah, man. What's it like down in Nashville weather-wise anyways right now?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's like 15 to 18 sort of thing during the day. Get a bit of sunshine when it.
What's that in Celsius? Are you talking Fahrenheit now?
Yeah, okay. I don't know what it is Celsius, but Fahrenheit's the proper system to use. So.
Does Australia uses metric and Celsius and stuff like that, don't they? Just convert it over.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not much of like a numbers guy, so I don't know the conversions or what have you. But
the US are the only holdouts, but we were kind of mixed up here. Like we'll use our distances we do in the metric, but then when you're talking about like how much do you weigh, you're going to hear pounds. When you ask someone how tall they are, they're going to give you like feet and inches. But all the distances are in meters and kilometers and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. Definitely makes more sense. Not yards.
Man. Hey, what was it like on your podcast? You've got some big names on it, and pretty intimidating to talk to, I'd imagine. Vivek Ramaswamy, what was that like for you?
That was definitely the most intimidating. Because I'd covered a lot of his videos on the channel, and then his team reached out to me and they were like, we like your videos. His like regional manager or something like that. Really cool guy. Reached out and we were chatting and we were speaking on Telegram a little bit, and I sort of just threw it out there. I was like, oh man, we should get Vivek on the channel. Like, notice he's doing all these different podcasts. And then they were like, yeah, sweet, we'll do it. And then didn't end up coming through and got cancelled once or twice. And then we were in Thailand last year and we managed to line up a date. Got in there and we were like, all right, we've got like he's got like half an hour. And then before we were meant to get on there, he was like on the phone or something. And they were like speaking to me. I was speaking to his producers and they were saying, oh, you know, he's like on the phone. He's like got something really important. And I was like, fuck, time's going down, you know, like, and then after about 10 minutes, he eventually got on. I spent about 20 minutes with him, gave him a few questions, and then that was it. But yeah, that was like the most nervous I've been for an interview for sure.
It's pretty, yeah, that's what I mean, like that pressure, right? Because he's super sharp.
Yeah. And like he was like in a really, he was in like a different mood that day. It was weird. Yeah, it was right after like maybe the first GOP debate. And I think that this is sort of when at that moment was when his campaign started to go downhill a little bit. My opinion is because he's like didn't go out and support Israel wholeheartedly. And he sort of said that he didn't want to fund a war in Israel. And I think that like that's suicide as a Republican candidate, because all of the constituents and donors are all in the pocket basically, bro. So yeah, so he got the call, and then I think I was pretty much there when that was like going down. I think I was at that time, and then he looked stressed, and then I think he'd been sick as well for the last few days. So I don't think I could have caught him at a worse time.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, I guess, but it was a good interview anyways.
Yeah, man. Well, it was a good interview to get for sure. And like, I definitely enjoyed talking to him. So that was cool.
So where are you taking the podcast now? Like, what do you have lined up for it, and what other projects do you have on the go?
So I have got a bunch actually just in the bank at the moment. And I'm like kind of just trying to figure out like the structure in which one I want to do it. Do I want to release clips and then eventually release the full podcasts? Do I want to just release like full podcasts at a time and then just release them once or twice a week? I was even thinking about making a new channel, but I don't think I'll do that. I've got about like 3 or 4 in the bank at the moment that I just need to like release slowly over the next few weeks and let the people know when they're out, I guess. And I've got other ones that I'm trying to do. So yeah, I don't want it to become too much of a focal point of the channel just yet. I'd like to wait till I'm in like my studio in about September. I want to set up a studio, and once I've got all that happening and that's like underway, then I can sort of take a little bit more of like a conversation-based approach and doing a lot more streaming and that sort of thing. But for now, I'd like to keep the content the same as it is, and then once or twice a week release a podcast as well. But I did my first in person the other day. We've got a bunch of new cameras and lighting and everything like that. So did that. But on the 28th of April, we leave the USA for about May, June, July, August, for about 4 months. So going through Europe to the UK for a bit, and then we're going to go to Cambodia and Bali for about 6 weeks, and then heading to Europe again for a little while, and then I'll go to South America for a bit, and then back to the United States, wherever we want to actually properly set up. So,
sorry, did you say South America or South Africa?
South America, yeah.
We're in
Colombia.
Oh, nice.
For a little while. Yeah, man.
Amazing. Oh, that's gonna be fun.
Yeah. No, it'll be.
I'm sure it's all going to be fun.
Let's hope so.
Hey, man, awesome. Hey, I appreciate you coming on tonight and giving us your time and letting us know about what you've been up to. It's been a pleasure watching on YouTube and watching the channel grow and watching the new podcast take shape. So I'm excited for you, and I'm going to keep my eyes on you. And yeah, appreciate you a lot. Thanks for coming on.
No, it was a pleasure. Thanks heaps, and thanks a lot for making time again after I had to cancel on you last time. I really appreciate that.
All good.
Yeah, and if you ever need anything, man, just reach out.
Hey, man, keep fighting the good fight.
All right, brother. You take care.
Cheers, brother.